Hello, Harry Brownlow, shoulder specialist. Today I'm going to talk to you about some of the consenting issues around the operation of arthroscopic capsular release. It's really great you're watching this video so you have an idea of what you might be letting yourself in for, and so this forms part of the whole consenting issue and perhaps will raise questions that you'll want to talk through with your surgeon before signing your name to the bit of paper. So you're probably having this operation because your shoulder has got stiff, so the indication, the reason why we're doing an operation is trying to improve your stiffness and almost certainly trying to improve your function and perhaps also trying to improve pain at the same time. But like all operations, it does carry risks and complications, and none of them are too severe or common, but it's worth thinking them through before you finally sign onto the consent form. So the first thing to be aware of is that the operation doesn't always work. So it's successful probably in 9 out of 10 cases. And if you are that unlucky 1 out of 10 in whom the operation has not been as successful as you would like, there are very often other things that could be considered again and come back and try. So the most common complication is failure to achieve what you and your surgeon are trying to do. The next complication is something that's really rare, that's infection. We are introducing instruments into your shoulder, therefore there is a small risk of introducing infection, but because it's done with keyhole, with water rushing through the shoulder joint, actually the opportunity of developing an infection after this type of surgery is incredibly uncommon. The next thing is dislocation. At the end of the operation, once we've done the release, I would tend to do what's called a manipulation, which is just to pick your arm up and give it a good move round and make sure that we've recovered all the movement. And in doing so, it is possible to dislocate your shoulder. Now, I'll know I've dislocated your shoulder and I'll pop you straight back into joint and you won't even know it's even happened, but you probably should be aware that it is a possibility that it's going on. The next thing is fracture, which is something unbelievably rare. I don't think I've ever encountered it in this type of surgery. And again, it would happen during the manipulation at the end. So if I hadn't released your shoulder perhaps as well as I could have done, and I'm pushing really hard on your shoulder and you've got incredibly tight shoulder and yet you've also got very fragile bone, I suppose there's a chance that I might break your bone. And of course that would be awful and you'd have horrible pain. But it would show up nicely on an x-ray and there's usually things that we can do for it. So that would be really a catastrophic complication, but something that is very, very unlikely to happen. And the final thing is another thing that's really, really uncommon, and that's serious nerve injury. There are lots of nerves that are close to the shoulder and we're very aware of where the nerves are and obviously have a good understanding of exactly where they are. And the risk of damaging the nerve in a permanent fashion is incredibly small, but it's important that you're aware that it could happen to you if you're extremely unlucky, and that might have a bearing on whether or not you wish to proceed with the procedure. So those are the key ones. Failure, which is the most common, and then all the rest are pretty uncommon. Infection, fracture, dislocation, and nerve injury. If you don't like the sound of this, there are alternatives to consider. You might think about not having the operation and just put up with your symptoms and hope eventually they'll go away, or you might choose to have a cortisone injection if you haven't already done so, or you may choose to try physiotherapy or other alternative medical treatments. So, thank you for listening and I hope this has been of help. Goodbye.